Well, welcome everyone. I hope you're all doing well. For those that are members of Execs in the Know, it's great to have you join and participate in today's discussion. For you that are new to Execs in the Know, my name is Chad McDaniel. I'm president and co-founder of RCX sharing community we call Execs in the Know. Hey, I'm real excited for today's conversation, and I think there's going to be tremendous value and unique insight. And I've asked a couple of very special guests to come join us today. We're going to get to introductions here very shortly. But as I kind of open up for today's session, as we look at the value of done and rapid customer experiences, we've got a great case study with Yellow. And Greg, who's joining us from Yellow, is going to dive into that. But however, we all know as consumers that and customer service experience professionals, consumer expectations are very demanding. They expect quick, frictionless, nimble services. And really the angle here with low code gives us a unique opportunity to meet customer expectations in a much more rich, nimble, and robust way. So we've got some great ideas and some thought-provoking ideas also that we're here to share. I've got a couple of slides I do want to go through quickly before we jump right into the call or the discussion today. First of all, welcome. I greatly appreciate your listenership. I value your time, and I know how precious all of our time is. I want to make this a very interactive session. There's probably going to be some concepts that will come in. Feel free to put your questions out there. Use the chat box in the platform here. They are more than happy to get them answered for you. But again, thank you. And let's get our questions answered. So please use that and we'll make sure we get back to you on it. I'm real excited for those that joined us last March in Clearwater. We're looking to meet again at our national summit called the Customer Response Summit. This is a great 2.5-day format that we all come together and really share in meaningful conversations, table talk, small group discussion, breakout, keynotes. Mark your calendars for October 24th, 26th. We're going to be in the beautiful Coronado, California area, and we have some amazing speakers and discussions that are being planned. For you that if this is your first time to Execs in the Know, we are your community. We're really just a leaders learning from leaders community, sharing best practices and insights. There's so many ways to get involved. If you go to execsintheknow.com, just go to our Knowledge Center or go to our Events tab. You can see all the amount of research, white papers, other indicators to help us do a great job with our customer success in our respectable organizations. Really a great community, and we appreciate everyone's participation. We are very fortunate to have a great board from Execs in the Know. This board here is so much involved in everything we do within Execs in the Know, really trying to make a difference in our industry. And I cannot say thank you so much to each and every brand as their passion is customer success. Finally, if you're not part of our online community called Know It All, this is where we can continue today's conversation. Very featured rich discussions, 24/7 digital platform. Just reach out to me, chat at execsintheknow.com. We have many corporate brands that participate in this online community, and I know you'll like the conversations and discussion threads that are taking place within that. Okay, well, JW, I want to get through that fairly quick. Basically, it's Airkit has been a fantastic partner of Execs in the Know community, really leading edge solutions. I know you're going to share a little bit about that for those that may not be familiar with the organization. I also want to say thank you so much for Greg from Yellow joining us today. For our audience, let's just take a couple minutes here and quickly introduce ourselves and a little bit about the brand.
Awesome. Hello. So I'm Jeff Whitehead. I'm the CIO at Airkit, and that means I'm responsible for things like compliance, data security, governance, those things. And we're actually a smaller startup. So I also run one of the backend engineering teams, how we have data come in, flow through the system, all of our AWS hosting and things like that. I've been in the IT world for longer than I care to admit. I've founded and exited a couple of venture-backed startups, and most notably, I guess, prior to Airkit about 10 years ago, I was the CIO at a major photo finisher called Shutterfly that you may know of from like the Ellen Show and other media presence.
Well, I tell you what, JW, having your experience and knowledge just is a real treat for us in our community. So again, I know we've planned a lot about today's conversation, so please give us as much as you can and share as much rich insight. Greg, Yellow, I think a lot of people heard of Yellow, but maybe you could tell us a bit about the role in the organization also.
Absolutely. My name is Greg Rupp. I'm with Yellow. Yellow is a $5 billion less-than-truckload carrier. We're vital to the supply chain in North America. We have over 300 freight terminal facilities and 30,000 employees. Most of those folks drive a vehicle of some sort. About this time of the day, we have maybe 6,000 city pickup and delivery drivers. Depending on the time of day, maybe 2,000 long haul over the road drivers. And we pick up and deliver upwards of 70,000 shipments a day for over 250,000 customers. I am the Vice President of Applications, Enterprise Data and Analytics. I lead a team of about 150 professionals, technology professionals that engineer and maintain all of the systems at Yellow that move our freight and interact at scale with our customers.
You know, it's interesting, Greg, when you put in the scale and size and the logistics and just everything that makes it happen, it's very impressive. And I think your case study today is going to be fantastic for us. And I look forward to hearing more. So execs to know, let's dive in, let's jump in. And JW, I'm going to turn it over to you and Greg as our experts here.
Great, thank you. So our core premise is that customer experiences for many businesses could use some improvement. I think that we've all seen what Amazon has done to retail in terms of getting things quickly, finding them easily, and having great customer service after the fact. I think they've actually introduced a whole new industry that they're calling return fraud by how open their return policy is. So that's a little bit interesting. And so one of the things that I believe is that most businesses do a good job under the normal case. It's what do they do and how do they handle it when something goes awry. I'm sure you've experienced this from other industries like restaurants, service industries like hotels, the Ritz-Carlton. What do they have besides, nice buildings and good service? So what Airkit is a low-code platform that will help businesses build these types of Amazon-like customer experiences so they can go onto a website or app or phone or voice or text or wherever the customer is and interact with the customer in their modality and hopefully help solve their problem. The expectations of customers have really changed a lot to where they want to see a solution, with one touch point. So you've probably had an experience where you contact somebody, then you have to get transferred to another department, or then maybe the call gets dropped. Really what Airkit is as a low-code platform, let me stop and pause about low-code for a second. What low-code is, for those who haven't experienced this, is it's not where it requires traditional software development professionals to come in and build an application. Instead, I'd have you imagine that something more like what someone with an Excel level of knowledge or maybe a Salesforce administrator would know how to do. And rather than like opening up a IDE and writing lines of code and having a computer science degree, we have a visual UI where you can drag and drop widgets like a calendar widget or a swipe a credit card widget. And there is still a learning curve, but our aspiration is that anybody who can learn, Excel or these other SaaS platforms can be successful with building these applications that are Airkit. And so what we're trying to do is give rise to this notion of business developers, business users being able to become developers and change the look and feel of applications where there's minor tweaks that are needed. Now, there are still some things where you do need the software development professionals, like if you have to connect to a backend database or have some heavyweight computation to be done. But the idea here is that the tool itself offloads most of the heavy lifting and lets you both rapidly develop it, but on top of that, iterate over it. Because most people know that in software, the first version of a program you tend not to want to go to. Like the first time Windows 11 comes out, you don't want to upgrade. You want to wait a little bit until the kinks have been worked out. And so it's not just that getting the application up quickly, but also how rapidly you can iterate and how many applications you can support without it becoming a burden to your development staff. So with that framework, also we are taking questions. So this is being recorded and will be delivered asynchronously. But please put your questions in the chat, and we'll get back to you in email after the fact. Love your questions, and hopefully I've done a little bit of a good job explaining what low code is. And now let's talk a little about Yellow. So Greg, could you tell us a little about yourself and a little bit more about what the state of Yellow was when you sort of came to Airkit? You gave us a great description about what Yellow does and your scale. So thank you for that.
Right, sure. So it was probably about 18 months ago that we first got introduced to Airkit, Jeff and his team. And what really captured our attention was this idea that we could augment the way that we provide customer service with a new digital channel that we hadn't offered previously. So Jeff's team did a great job of explaining the use case, their platform, and how it could provide this digital channel. We have a very large customer service organization. It's very large and it's very traditional. In fact, we have two major call centers, one in Des Moines, Iowa, and one in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We have about 400 or so customer service specialists, or CSSs, as we call them. And 18 months ago, and still even, the supply chain was pretty messed up. And when we have disruptions in our supply chain, we tend to get more interactions with our customers. And those interactions involve a customer service specialist, and a phone call. This was all prior to Airkit. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to offer our customers an additional way to get in touch with us. And so we partnered with Airkit to do that. I'll stop there, Jeff, if you want to jump in, and then I'll tell you more about what we did.
Well, yeah. So I'm really curious, were you searching for a solution? Did this somewhat come up opportunistically? Like what was the pain you were trying to solve when you started this discussion with us?
Well, that's a great question. The pain was really, as the supply chain was in such a state of disarray, we get more and more calls. We're getting more and more calls about where is my shipment and when is it going to be delivered. And that call volume was overwhelming our 400 plus customer service specialists. So we heard about Airkit. We heard about what you had done in a previous customer about offering those customers a digital channel to get in touch. And so this is what we did. And we did this iteratively with the Airkit team over a period of several months. But we established a digital channel that was available to those traditional customers who were calling in, and they could opt out of that phone call, which, the pain for them was waiting for tens of minutes on hold while our customer service specialists were dealing with this huge volume of calls. So we gave them, with Airkit, an ability to opt out of that in-person phone call, to get a text on their mobile phone with a link that would allow them to click on that and answer that question, where is my shipment and when is it going to be delivered? And that link brought up a web page on their mobile phone, and it had exactly the same information that they would have gotten had they chosen to hang on and talk to that live customer service agent.
Cool. So eliminating hold time seems like an obvious win, but how do you think consumers these days feel about not having that human element and doing it via a system versus talking to someone? Is that a net positive or a net negative?
I think in all cases it's a net positive. I think some of our my kids, for example, I don't know that they like to spend any time on their phones live.
Same.
With talking to a person, right? So there's an element there. I think some customers prefer that digital channel. But some customers, they want to use the digital channel. They want to use the traditional phone channel. They want to go to your website. And so we found it was important to offer our customers a way to interact with us that fit their needs, right? And it fit their desires. And so by adding this digital channel, we know that we're addressing the desires of segments of our customers.
Okay, great. And what have your results been, so far with this transformation?
It's been very positive. We were able to move through our development process pretty quickly. We were able to iterate. Going into this, we had a pretty good idea at what a live call costs to service. So we calculate that to be $6.25 per call, per live call. And so if we can deflect some of those calls to the digital channel, it's much less, it's much cheaper for us to service that call digitally versus having a live agent do it. It also provides us some other benefits. That is a durable link to that shipment status that we offer them through the Airkit channel. And so if their shipment didn't arrive today, but it's going to arrive tomorrow, they can click on that same link tomorrow. They don't have to call back in. And so we're seeing a number of benefits. The primary one that we use to sell this internally in our organization was the fact that the cost of servicing would go down. And we have seen that. Now, the deflection rate is not 100%. The deflection rate that we've achieved so far is about 5%. And we are looking for ways to improve that deflection rate. We actually have 4 different brands that are part of the yellow umbrella. Depending on where you are in the country, if you're in the West, you'd recognize the Redaway brand. If you're in the Northeast, you'd recognize New Penn. In the central part of the country, it would be Holland. And our national carrier is YRC Freight. And so we started with YRC Freight, and now we're rolling it out to the other brands. And so we expect that deflection rate to go up because we're offering it across all 4 of our brands.
Going back, that's pretty interesting that you said that not only maybe you're deflecting a call today, but maybe a call tomorrow or a week later, depending on what's happening with that shipment. And yes, it sounds like you only got, upside and opportunity for that, improving that deflection rate. If it's okay, I'll move to my next slide, which talks about, the difficulties of building these types of solutions. So I guess, before I go into these details and everyone can read the slides, I wanted to ask you what your perspective was on using something like Airkit versus whatever you're doing previously, whether it's web developers with JavaScript and React, or I don't know what you had in place previously, but how would you compare and contrast those two?
Yeah, well, Yellow has been a traditional company. We've been around for over 100 years. And it seems like some of our systems that we have are 100 years old. And we're a very traditional company. We're just, Airkit is our first low-code development partner. So traditionally, we've been doing custom development. For most of our systems, we do custom development because LTL, the less-than-truckload market, is a pretty small one relative to addressable software problems. And so we build a lot of our own applications. That does look like, not to get too technical, but that does look like hardcore coding and JavaScript and Node.js and Java on the back end and SQL servers and so on and so forth.
So I seem to recall you integrated a bunch of different backends for building this shipping tracking status application. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. We've connected to multiple different systems on our back end. The primary one is the shipment information system that we have. And when I say that, it's a little bit of a misnomer because there are multiple systems that come together to provide shipment status information. So, Airkit is a modern low-code platform. It has all the features that you'd want in terms of how you integrate Airkit, API, RESTful APIs, again, not to get too technical. But we integrated Airkit with our back-end legacy systems in that standard way, and it happened pretty quickly. Another one of our main systems, and the system that is primarily responsible for our customer interaction, our customer service, and our sales system, and a lot of people have this, is Salesforce. And so one of the things that intrigued us about Airkit, knowing now what we do about your background and where a lot of your folks came from, we saw a great synergy between Airkit and Salesforce. And that was part of what drew us to Airkit, was that, we could tell that you integrate to a lot of different platforms, but there is that kind of special connection to Salesforce that we saw that you have.
That's right. We definitely have deep Salesforce ties and a large number of integrations out of the box. If I can talk about another one of our customers for a second, we have a large insurance company that would trigger off of a Salesforce opportunity record being created, but no further activity had happened. So it was essentially an abandoned application for life or auto. I'm probably mixing up what type of insurance policy it was. But what happened is they found that the sales team was responsible for chasing down these leads. By automating this, they actually increased their contact rate by 4 times, and they did it in a TCPA compliant way, as there's rules in the United States about when you can send text messages or call people. You can't call them at 3 a.m., for example, and wake them up. That's not legal. And they actually, one of the surprises was it increased call duration. And at first it was like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And then realizing that the sales actually increased, it was a good thing because they were hotter leads. It wasn't, no, thank you, hang up. It was, yeah, actually, I am shopping for insurance. Tell me more about that. So that's a good use case that's out there. So the three takeaways for this slide here. The first of it is slow dev speed is a major problem, and IT projects not meeting timelines or budgets is a very common thing. You can read about it in CIO or IT magazine, any day of the week. And one of the things I'll say about Airkit, in addition to the predefined widgets and integrations, you can actually build the real application in about the same time that using traditional technologies you'd build a prototype. So there's a tool called, I don't want to go into too many details, but there's a tool called Postman that lets you connect to REST APIs. And we've got a connection builder that instead of just building a prototype, you can actually build the real thing and then iterate on that. And it's tactile. And so instead of sort of like having a whiteboard and drawing a diagram of what you think the application should look like, you can actually see an application. And I think we'll go through how you iterated on yours in a later slide. Second concern is always cost. And so Airkit has a way, because we are both hosting and development, we take care of that for you and sort of put boundaries around that. And then this last part is, it's really hard to hire developers these days and keep them happy and productive. And so this is opening up the ability to build these types of applications to sort of a new class of person. I talked about the Salesforce admin. I think like WordPress developers or the traditional webmasters of the past are all good candidates for Airkit developers. And we've routinely taken, business people through our training program that we call Airkit Flight School. We got to use the aeronautic theme for everything, and have them building real applications within a day. And one of the other differences about Airkit versus the previous low-code experiments was that the previous ones were really good at one single purpose. Airkit is a little bit better at letting you control the look and feel that you want. So we're not a straitjacket or a box that you're constrained in, to the level of being able to select the fonts and, of course, all the placement on the screen, so you can really fit in with your brand guidelines. And so our pithy question is: would you rather build one app in 6 months or 6 apps in 1 month? And then I'd also follow on with that with the ability to iterate on that over time. So this is the benefits of low code, faster time to market, adapted easily, higher engineering productivity. And I'll put an asterisk there because I think the real benefit is maybe you only take one of your engineers to help with the initial setup and have these business users do the rest of the work. Another couple examples that I have for successful customers. One was a major bank that during the COVID-19 crisis, their branches were closed. So how did they set up, banking appointments with their scheduling? So they had to integrate with Salesforce, Banno, which is a banking vertical, and actually Outlook Calendar, because it was putting it on individual people's appointments. The other thing we handled with that customer was setting up loan repayments. Take it out of ACH, out of my bank account every month, what have you. One more that seems kind of like what you had was, there was a customer that was in the restaurant booking industry, and they were starting from a little bit of a different point. They had a predefined sort of single purpose 800 number. For the CX professionals out there, you may know that different companies will publish different 800 numbers as like the entry point. So instead of having an IVR that says, are you calling to check your status, or are you calling to place an order, you sort of know what the starting point was. But they knew what the starting point was. So there wasn't a lot of many forks in the tree, but they were able to achieve a 95% call deflection for 33,000 calls that was built and deployed in 4 days. So that's one I'm really proud of, because they had a really concise, much more limited use case than what you had, but it worked really well for them. So What I'd like to transition to is the value of done. And my understanding is on the left was an early version of your application, and then on the right, which I think it looks a lot better, is what you ended up publishing live either today or at least at one point. Can you tell me more about this revision process?
Sure. We had a pretty close connection to our Airkit team that helped us develop this application. We would meet. I would meet with the team weekly. We would get to see weekly progress, but our main business users were working on a daily basis. And I can remember oftentimes on the calls that I was on, you would see the application change in real time. And so what we first came out with ended up looking very, very different and a whole lot better because of that very iterative development process where you could make changes very quickly and get that immediate feedback. In fact, and this is a little bit of our dirty laundry, but where we had the most problem was really with those back-end systems, those legacy systems. Those were more difficult to change by a long shot than the Airkit front end. And so when we did have a speed bump or two in the fast iterative development process, it was usually because of our legacy systems and some of the difficulties we had with those back-end systems.
Okay. Aside from your backend systems, were there any other speed bumps you ran into with the Airkit? Like, how hard was it for your developers to pick up this this paradigm? And actually, sorry, follow-on question with that is, what was the mix of sort of developers and business users that you had on this project?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very small team. We had perhaps one or two engineers, technical people, and most of the people who had eyes on this application as it was being developed was our customer service team, the team who runs those solution centers in Des Moines and Sioux Falls and in Kansas City. Our main business customer, my counterpart on the customer service side, was very, very involved. And I think that's something that he would tell you was unique in his experience, because I could tell he really appreciated being in on the ground floor of the way that this application was being developed. He got to see it change in real time, provide his feedback in real time. And so, we had a very few number of technology resources, and we were able to get a pretty high level of business user who could provide feedback and input. And that was unique in our experience.
That sounds great. One thing I feel like I need to call out, because I realize I didn't cover this already, is the Airkit can also be embedded in other applications. So I'm not sure what call center software you use. Is it Genesis?
Well, we use Aspect Alvaria now, I think is what it's called.
Okay. So most of our...
I wish there was only one.
Okay. Most of our customers that are using Genesis or Salesforce, and we've been able to embed things right on the main screen that comes up for somebody answering a customer call, the agents, and put in not just like status displays, like here's inventory of the thing that they're trying to return, can we fulfill that, but also be able to kick off other workflows to other systems. So really that's one of the powers of Airkit, is be able to pull these different systems together, whether it's your ERP, your CRM, all these acronyms that are out there. But the trick is, data is fractured in modern environments. How do you pull it all together and get it on the same page where the person actually needs it? And so if I was talking to your customer service team, I would pitch that and say, hey, when you're looking at that screen dealing with a call, what information do you wish that you had that your SaaS vendor doesn't necessarily support? And that's a great case for Airkit because we just have a little JavaScript blurb you got to put on the page, and we can do anything.
Well, and we have explored some of those use cases, or in Airkit parlance, journeys. And so one of the things that we have some designs to do is put a digital assistant right next to that customer service agent who's working mainly in Salesforce. So that is one of the things that's on our roadmap, as well as expanding upon that digital channel that we talked about earlier. And just like you might get a text from your dentist to schedule an appointment or confirm an appointment, we do residential deliveries. That's a segment of our business. And so we're very excited about that use case, again, that journey, and offering that lower friction way to get in touch with our customers to get their delivery scheduled for them. We think there's a lot of value in that use case, and that's the primary one that we're working on right now.
Sounds great. You mentioned up front that Yellow has a bunch of different brands, and I think you said you're working on consolidating them. How does Airkit fit in that consolidation picture?
Yeah. So, on the slide that you're showing, you see the YRC Freight logo. That logo, we're in the process of moving away from that logo and the other three companies that I mentioned, those brands, New Penn, Holland, and Redaway. And so one of the things that's great about Airkit, it's very, very easy when we make this brand transition to this logo that you see on my t-shirt. We'll just swap that in. And it's been very easy to connect our integrated voice response units, our IVRs. Maybe a lot of people on the call, on the webinar know what those are, but it's been very easy to integrate those as well with Airkit. It's been a breeze.
Awesome. So for somebody who is, maybe net new, considering Airkit or another low-code solution, now that you've been through this, what advice would you have for them? And what advice would you have for your team for the next application, I guess, is another follow-on question.
Sure. Well, I think when you're getting your feet wet, I would say find a pilot. Find a pilot that you can do, kick the tires on the low-code platform. Also realize that when you're doing that, there are horses for courses. I think there's a difference in low-code platforms. We liked Airkit because they captured our attention for this use case. They demonstrated that they had this in their wheelhouse and it was something they could do. We also like that affinity with Salesforce. And so, I think the low-code platforms, they do have their strengths. We're only using Airkit right now, but we will experiment with others. This is general stuff, but have a business case, right? Have a business case that gives you sponsorship and other voices, especially beyond your technology people, that you can use to make that case. And as a technology person, I would say try to get ahead of your customers. And to the business folks on this call, which I think are most of the population here, bring your technology team along, because these solutions, they are new. There's a lot of buzz about them, and I think you need some seasoned technology professionals to help you make good choices for the platforms to use.
I completely agree with that. I spend a lot of time with customers helping with what I call design patterns. Because if you're net new to the space, there's certain things we've known from software construction for years, like basic things like have backups and, test it in a test environment, things like that, that aren't necessarily written down in a book somewhere if you don't have a CS degree to know how to approach these low-code applications. So that's a good area. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your time, Greg. Is there any questions you have for me that the audience might be interested while we're here?
Well, I'm interested to know, the future of Airkit and where you all are headed.
Our future is really going after that developer and how easy it is to get started. I'm sure that you've seen what you can build with Airkit, but there is a spectrum. Like, the first time you start with Excel, you're probably not using VLOOKUPs and SUMIFs, right? So we want to make it easier to get started with Airkit. And so we have a new feature that we call Kit Clouds that are like software libraries. But right now there are components, like there's a calendar component, there's a drop something on a map component. I think what we're going to level up to is building whole applications and letting them take them apart and see how they actually work under the hood. A lot of things that we're doing in the current quarters are for our big banks and insurance companies about role-based access control, audit logs. So if there's people out there watching that are in regulated industries thinking that low-code's not applicable for you, that may not be the case. We actually have a lot of controls there and have gotten through some of the biggest banks in the US and their security reviews. Other areas are just, new functionality and speed. We've recently launched, we've got a your data center in Europe for the GDPR customers. We've also got one in Asia Pacific for Australia. I think the future is going to be Canada and Central America. So for global multinationals, those are areas that we're going after. And so sorry, I'm really the back-end guy. So it's more about like the database and how the data flows. We've got a bunch of JavaScript and front-end wizards, and they would probably have more to say, but I would say I don't want to commit to anything, and I'll say watch the space because we've got some really neat things coming up.
Well, I want to say, Greg and JW, thank you very much. JW, great job on doing the definition of low code in the beginning, and also some other use case studies that you brought into the conversation. Greg, I want to ask you, and you brought up some interesting points as you made this transformation, and the abilities of what you've done in trying to meet customers in a very timely, self-sufficient way, and reducing any type of customer effort issues. You had talked about, first of all, across all of your 4 brands, is it all B2B, or is there a B2C consumer component to any of the call types?
Most of our business is B2B, but we do have this residential delivery segment. So an example would be if you order a couch on Wayfair, and you want it delivered to your home. So we will handle that type of a delivery. And what we found is that B2C relationship is much, much different than the B2B one, which is, probably represents 95% of our business, right? And so I don't want to bore you guys and go over ground again, but really scheduling that delivery and being able to do that by text is going to be a game changer for us, because think about that interaction with, when you get a call from a number you don't recognize, you don't answer it. I don't answer it. Right? On average, it takes us 3 calls from our terminal facility, a busy terminal facility, to get an appointment scheduled. That's not good for us. That's not good for the customer. And so that's where we see, this B2C channel that we have, which is fairly small for us. We have some real pain in that channel that we're going to address.
Greg, let me ask you, you had talked about there was in the initial of the like a 5% deflection you mentioned somewhere in there. And was any of that about a customer education thing? Did COVID create any false flags or anomalies? I'm sitting there thinking, if I want to find out where the shipment of my order is, I don't want to call an agent. I would love to have that self-service option. So obviously you're looking to continue to increase that, but was there any initial thoughts or findings or surprises in that 5%?
None that I can think of off the top of my head. And I want to also tell you guys, we have a website. You can look up status on the website. We thought that this digital channel that I described was new and it offered something different, and it does.
Absolutely.
That durability of that link, that's a big thing that we're finding out. That was one of the ahas, is that people are not just using it at the time they place that phone call and deflect out. They're using it the next day. Hopefully not the next day, because normally would deliver things, within 3 days or so.
JW, I'm thinking, and I don't know in Greg's case if it's 100% an in-sourced call model or there's a hybrid between outsource and in-source, but some of our listeners in the community have a very rich in-source, outsource type of model. In this sort of scenario that we've been talking about, do you have any comments or thoughts about where that's being leveraged and when working with an outsourced partner in this context?
For sure. So as far as the call centers, the agents, I know we have some outsourced ones, and since we're 100% cloud delivered, as long as you have an internet connection, which you pretty much have to have a call center, we're good, and you don't need anything else on the agent side. The other place that we're seeing partners is actually on the application building side, and we have a major one of the 50 states, and their unemployment office is actually using us for appointment scheduling. That was actually built with a partner. So it's actually on sort of both ends, helping customers build the applications that don't want to do it themselves, as well as for these, in-sourced, outsourced call centers.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed the conversation just looking at this in a different light, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to solve, again, is frictionless, customer experience and solving customer needs in a very timely need, which is always not going to change or go away. And this gives us a real avenue, JW, I think, to look and consider and have sort of a competitive piece to it. When I think of in regards to low code, JW, is it limited to those with limited technical experience or building simple apps? Or I'm just curious, is there more flexibility in the platforms that are robust in use cases?
So that's a great question. And I wish I had a demo prepared, but like JavaScript developers and full stack developers love Airkit because of the leverage it gives them. If you take one of our applications and open up in our, we call it a Studio, Airkit Studio, which is for a developer, it's an IDE or integrated development environment. We actually have a debugger right there. And when you start clicking through things, you start seeing things that's going to resonate with a, I guess I'll call them a high code developer. Things like GUIDs for objects, custom events, anything that you want to do, we've made sure that there is a pressure relief valve. We're trying to make the natural flow of things easy, but if you want to do something special or custom or build a big application, we had a hack day recently. We had people actually embed Doom, the video game, inside of an Airkit application. So there's a lot of different things you can do with Airkit out of the box if you have the wizards available. But for 99% of the applications, which is schedule a call or digitize this form or deflect these calls, a traditional business user, maybe with a little bit of help, is going to be able to build that, and certainly going to be able to iterate on that on their own.
JW, how do you, everyone listening to this call is going to be on the business side, running customer experience organizations. What advice, recommendations, I know each brand's a little bit different, but that relationship with the developer, the IT group within their respective organizations, I think we as CX leaders, have to continue to be very demanding of customer needs and what needs to be accomplished. Would there be any recommendations or just thoughts to how we continue to integrate this marriage between customer need, business requirements, and then limited IT resources or challenges there?
Yeah, I think the premise is that you can borrow, beg, borrow, or steal one or two IT or developer people, and really paint the picture of what you're trying to accomplish. We can help you sort of explain, how this works, but the majority of our successful customers have a technical resource sort of from the get-go and kind of becomes an internal champion. And I think you'll find that that's not uncommon. Like Salesforce, they say there's no software, but you got to have a Salesforce admin if you're of any size. Maybe it's your ticketing system like Zendesk or Jira. Somebody's an admin for that. Airkit's really no different, but there's the amount of leverage you get out of the box. Like you don't need to be a full-on software developer to set these things up. And I will, say that we have a lot of pre-recorded trainings. We've got our flight school, but we have done a lot of these trainings where there's, executives, business users, and like one or two IT people. And it really is about letting those IT people be a force multiplier with Airkit for those other users. And so I wouldn't say that you're going to be able to build it as a business user end to end for that first application, but you might for your second and third.
Very good. Thank you. And Greg, I want to leave on this with you. First of all, congratulations of your toe in the water and digital transformation. There's a number of brands that have done that journey, are doing that journey. I don't know if there's any particular words of advice or thoughts, or I know you did a couple of recommendations, but as organizations are listening to this, and each has their respective need and change towards digital transformation, would there be anything you just would want to give and continued encouragement? I know start with a pilot and other areas, but just from your own experiences, would there be anything else you want to add?
Well, this is just one of the transformations that my company is going through. We talked about the movement away from the 4 legacy brands to the yellow umbrella, and as you drive the highways and byways of the nation, you'll see yellow more than you will see YRC Freight, New Penn, so on and so forth. And the business people on this call, on this webinar, know this better than I do. We need to communicate with our customers about what's going on in that transformation because it's confusing to them. Where did that logo go? I don't understand the guy that showed up with the yellow badge on his shirt. Where's the Redaway badge? So one thing that I'm realizing, even as a technology person, is that the amount of communication that we need to have with our customers and with our employees that are going through these changes you can't underestimate that.
Yeah. No, well said. And Greg, I extend a handshake to our larger community. I hope you'll continue to stay very involved. I applaud your efforts. Thank you for doing what you're doing and keeping customer top of mind within your brand and organization and the experimenting that's taking place. We're big fans of that and big fans of you. So keep going at it. It's never an ending journey, as we all know. I know there's a number of questions that you're going to have from listening to this recording today's session. So what I'd like you to do, if you haven't all done so already, please put your questions in the chat box. There's probably a ton of questions you may have for JW, for Greg, as we brought up some different concepts, some different points. We'll do our best to get everything answered as quickly as possible back to you. But how we work together as a community is learning through each other. So your questions are very helpful for others as we see that and learn and share together. So JW, I'm going to give you final word. We're going to close out. I've got a couple of quick comments for the community. Would there be any final, if someone's listening to this and they would like to speak with you, JW, is there a way they can get a hold of you fairly quick? I know you're willing to share ideas and give sort of, as much examples as you can. So is there be a way, look you up on LinkedIn or?
I'm definitely on LinkedIn. Also, my email address is jw@airkit.com. I'm not always the fastest on email, but maybe a LinkedIn might be a little bit faster. But yeah, hit me up and I'd be happy to connect you with one of our support or salespeople or answer any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, JW. So finally, to our community, another great session of thought leadership being shared with you. You don't have to go at this alone. Execs in the Know is a sharing community for you. It helps us do our jobs better, hopefully eliminate any previous errors that have existed out there within our respective industry. But it's really about elevating the success of this industry. So if you're not a part of our online community, please join. You'll find a number of great community members there that are so willing to help and give their insights. But I can't say thank you enough, Greg and JW, for your leadership. Please come back. Please continue to tell us how this journey is going and help us in the education. So on behalf of myself and our community, we say thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you for having us.